The majority of people view members of the mob as street smart, hence the name wiseguys, which typically equates to a person that's wiser than the average guy. Nevertheless, there's something to be said about people who, by all conventional measures, are more streetwise. How could a person with less street experience outplay wise guys in their own domain? If you think about it, it disrupts our assumptions about what it means to be a wise guy. People who are wise can become anchored to the patterns and principles that have worked in the past. Their street experience, while powerful, can also narrow their perspective, overcomplicating problems and underestimating an unconventional opponent. The person who outsmarts them does so not by matching their intelligence, but rather by sidestepping it, which is a clear indication that intelligence is multifaceted. Outsmarting wiser people doesn't necessarily mean being more intelligent, but rather using one's abilities more effectively. John DiLorenzo was Sicilian-born who came to this country and became very successful in the pizzeria business. He once told me whenever he looked to buy a pizzeria, he would sit outside the place and watch the amount of traffic. When he decided he wanted to buy it, he would make an offer and tell the person that he's going on vacation. And like clockwork, he'd hear from the owner that he was accepting his offer. After meeting John, I quickly understood his Sicilian ways of conducting himself. There were many of times that he tested me, but in subtle ways. One of his abilities was to weigh a person's importance and how that can be used in his own life. Everybody played a role in John's life, and he went about his life like he did with the pizzeria business, like a well-oiled machine. He mentioned to me that years ago, Sal Vitale, the former Banana underboss, began coming to his restaurant, which is an extension of his pizzeria, where one side sold pizza and the other side sold food. Vitale would bring a lot of guys, Bananos, to the restaurant. And initially, John said he wasn't giving them a bill, until Vitale told him one day, make sure you give everyone a bill. After all, this is your business. Over the course of time, he built a relationship with Vitale, who put him on record with the Bananos. When Vitale began cooperating, one of the guys that he took to John's restaurant was Banano member Sandro Aosta, who then claimed John and put him on record with him. When I began going to John's restaurant, I somehow got tossed in the middle of a beef with the Bananos in regard to John. And I spoke about this in a previous video, but in a nutshell, I had to smack one of Sandro's associates and then embarrass Sandro in a sit-down. Following that, Sandro never went to John's restaurant again. Thinking back on it now, John instigated that entire ordeal. In his mind, he weighed which wise guy best served his needs. He wanted to be released from Sandro and the Bananos, and got exactly what he set out to do. After the incident, the Bananos wanted no part of him. It's important to keep in mind, associates do not call the shots. They can be traded or released to another family, but that decision is never theirs. Somehow, John managed to do this. A Gambino associate at the time tried claiming John as well. He was linked to the Sicilian faction and would eventually be straightened out. His name is Sal Lombardo. He's the guy I lent money to and spoke about in a previous video. In the near future, I'll do a full video dedicated to Sal. John wanted no part of Sal, who drained him of a lot of money. In fact, he's the reason the FBI, on 2 separate occasions, dug up John's properties in upstate New York. Anyway, John managed to strategically use me to keep Sal at bay, especially after Sal was inducted. This was a guy who was a leech and always tried to get money out of John. He also was squatting on one of his upstate properties, where he put animals on the property without asking John for permission, as well as a number of other things in which he took advantage of John. One of the more calculated moves John did was when I collected money that I had lent Sal, John offered to take it and pay the weekly vig on it for 2 reasons. First, it without question helped me because I didn't lose the revenue. And secondly, it kept me close to him and guaranteed that I see him at least once a week. Fast forward to the trouble that began with the Lucchese family turning on me by falsely labeling me. Little by little, as this played out, I did see a change in John. By this time, the Gambino straightened out Sal, and he went to his captain, Joe Gambino, and told him that he was a partner of John's and that the upstate properties were half his. Like I said, during this time, I was having problems of my own. I didn't know exactly what was happening, but knew something serious was taking place. Something that was also happening during this time is that I told John I needed all my money back. I wasn't comfortable with the vibes I was receiving with the Lucchese's and felt that having my money on the street wasn't so wise. So I called all of it in, including the money that John had of mine. And John could have paid me in one shot, but he cleverly piecemealed me. He would meet me and give me a few $1,000s at a time. I guess in his mind, he figured if they killed me, he didn't have to pay me the rest. John was getting very depressed over the South situation, but I figured out a solution. John's brother-in-law was very close to Mikey DeSantis. So I told John the plan would be that he would say that his brother-in-law was a silent partner in the properties upstate and that he should tell his brother-in-law to let Mikey know what was going on. This put the Gambinos in a predicament. They couldn't just push up on John for the money, $1.1 million, by the way, because they knew the Lucchese's would run interference and not allow that to happen. John did as I told him, and the Gambinos backed off. Now here's where John gets extremely crafty. Mikey DeSantis would have easily requested that John give him some money. After all, he just saved the guy over $1 million. But what Mikey wanted from John was for him to bring me to a meeting. At the time, I had already distanced myself. I wasn't talking or meeting with anyone. And this was at the very end. If you haven't liked this video yet, please take the time now and give it a like, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more importantly, help me to continue making them, you can donate with the Super Thanks icon down below, or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Let me quickly mention my blog, also called Sitdownnews, especially for those of you who still enjoy reading. The site can be found at sitdownnews.com and is a paid subscription. So one night, I go to the restaurant to pick up the final payment of my money from John. And he's in a good mood and tells me that everything worked out. Never thanked me, just that it all worked out. Then he turns around and tells me about a meeting that he set up with friends of mine. I was dumbfounded and felt totally sideswiped by what he just said. I told him, John, I don't need you to set up any meetings for me. That's not your place. He tried assuring me that he would go with me. That and $1 couldn't get me on the bus. I was extremely mad at him and said to him, who are you to make meetings for me? And I'm not meeting with anyone. His face turned red and he said to me, I gave my word. I told them that I would get you to come. One of the last things I said to him was you had no business speaking for me. And again, I'm not going anywhere. When I left the restaurant that night, I never heard from John again. Why was he so insistent on me going to the meeting? Here's why. Because it took him off the hook for the favor that Mikey did him regarding the property and the Gambinos and saved him $1.1 million. I'll give it to him. He played all of us. And he did it well. But in the end, he actually played himself and lost a true blue friend only to gain more bloodsuckers.